Gemini 2.5 Pro. It's actually the world's most powerful AI model. My mom wants to go and use some new tool. It's actually not easy to understand. How come the model can't just look at my screen to help me? And I think that's the magic of this real-time mode.
And I think the best part about Google is that they're able to keep everything available to the general public for free.
I can't say that I visited 56 websites for anything ever to try to make a decision.
Google's vision for AI in 2025, and where do you see yourself in this whole industry?
The thing that makes me most worried about the AI moment is not sort of existential worry about AI and the impact that it has. It really is that it's this incredibly powerful tool that most people still today don't know about and don't use in their everyday life.
Hi everyone, I'm Ishan, and today I'm at Google Mountain View office with Logan, who's leading Google AI Studio. And in this podcast, we'll be talking about how you can use AI tools in day-to-day life and how Gemini and Google AI Studio can blend into your life. And there's some amazing demos that we'll be showing on this laptop. So make sure you watch till the end. And Logan, thanks a lot for taking up the time. How are you doing there?
I'm hanging in here. Thank you for coming all the way to Mountain View to chat and to look at all the Gemini stuff and hang out with us. I'm hopeful this conversation will be fun.
Amazing. I've been following all the developments that Google has been doing in the space, right from the project Bard to where we are today and the latest products that Google has been launching. Love the work that has been put out there. But I want to start with understanding Google's vision for AI in 2025 and where do you see yourself in this whole industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the beautiful things about Google DeepMind specifically is you have this, if you look at how we compare to other labs and other people doing research, DeepMind has this breadth of research across everything from genomics and AlphaFold to, we have the world's best weather models and all of this stuff in between. And then of course, Gemini and VO and Imagine and all the generative AI models that folks are familiar with. But I think that the vision is really how can you create an environment where you bring together all the best of all this research and make sure that it ends up in products and models that impact people's lives every day. So I think we're sort of seeing the fruits of this already with Gemini. If you look at Alpha Proof and Alpha Geometry and some of the math models, a lot of that research actually directly went into helping make the Gemini models better at math. So I think we'll continue to see this breadth of research across all the different things that GDM is doing, and then how that sort of manifests itself into these main models that power the Gemini consumer experience and AI Studio for developers and all the other products that are in the Google ecosystem.
So we'll talk about both the segments of people who are developers and people who are new to all the ecosystem of AI and AI tools in general. So let's talk from the start. What are all the tools from Google that people can use today and they can get started with building whatever they want?
Yeah, I think if you're even if you are a developer, I still think the starting place for a lot of folks to experience Gemini is in the Gemini app itself. So it used to be called Bard, as you were referring to before. Now it's called the Gemini app, and it's gemini.google.com, and that sort of has this very slick consumer experience where you can try all the latest models. You can have all the features like deep research, which Google pioneered back in December. It now has personalization with your own Google search history. So it's really bringing together. At least my mental model of it is how do you take all the cool things that Google does, bring them into a single interface, and then sort of put AI, Gemini in this case, to sort of power an experience that really brings all that to life. So it's been a ton of fun to see all the new stuff they've been shipping actually come to life, and you Canvas and other things like that. So it's awesome.
So Gemini is the main app. What are the other tools and products that Google has been working on for helping people with AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, one of the blessings and one of the curses of Google is we have a ton of products out there. So, I mean, you can get Gemini or you can get sort of AI overviews in search. There's now AI mode in search. There's the core Gemini app as well. There's a whole slew of Google Labs products. So there's all the image FX, video FX for a bunch of different multimodal use cases. There's now Whisk, which is another image video generation part of Labs. Folks love Notebook LM. Notebook LM is another one of those examples. For developers, AI Studio is one of those things that folks come to. There's a whole enterprise, set up in cloud as well. So there's a lot of different places. I think AI.Google actually has a sort of landing page that sort of gives you the lay of the land of all of the different products that you could use across Google's AI offering. So if you're sort of trying to get the full gambit of things, AI.Google probably has all the right information.
I was just talking to the audience a couple of days ago about the Notebook LM's mind map feature, which is really helpful for people to just learn everything or revise about topics that they're learning about.
I saw a tweet and it was someone being like, hey, bring mind map to everyone or something.
Yeah.
And then they shipped it like literally the week after. I was like, that's so awesome. I'm happy that folks are liking it.
And I think the best part about Google is that they're able to keep everything available to the general public for free, which I think is something which really helps bring AI adoption to the masses, like people who are outside of the whole AI race on Twitter, especially, who are just like people who are in jobs, people who are trying to build something. How do you think about that? Have you always thought about keeping it free, or what is the thought process?
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I honestly like just like abstracting one level higher. I think this is one of the like biggest like the thing that makes me most worried about the AI moment is not sort of like existential worry about AI and the impact that it has. It really is that like it's this incredibly powerful tool that most people still today don't know about and don't use in their everyday life. And like the discrepancy in what's going to be possible with someone who's using these tools in their daily life and someone who's not is like actually pretty extreme. And I feel like that's actually already the case today. Like you could, people who know how to use these tools can vibe code and do all this crazy stuff. And if you're a developer, can build stuff really quickly. So I think it's a very intentional part of the strategy. And I think if you look at this from an AI studio perspective, which is the product I work on, the whole experience is free. You show up and it's like, try literally like our most frontier, highest capability models are available to the world to try for free. And I think, we'll see how long we're able to continue to do that. I think as more and more people show up, it becomes harder and harder to offer that. But I do agree fundamentally. It's super important that this stuff's available to everyone, especially in this like transition moment where like so many folks don't use AI and are ramping up to use AI in the future. So I'm happy that lots of the products have this. And then also like at the end of the day, it's also super important to me that there's like available premium offerings, like, cause there's a limit of how much stuff you can give people for free. And like there needs to be, if you really want to go crazy with Notebook LM and generate podcasts all day, like there needs to be a way for you to do that. So I think giving people that flexibility is also super important.
Yeah, I think Google's offerings, especially in the AI space, is truly underrated. And I just keep telling people about, use Gemini, use Notebook LM, use Google AI Studio. But we'll come to Google AI Studio. Before that, I want to talk about Gemini. And for people who are watching this for the first time, who haven't used Gemini, how would you describe it and its applications, both for developers as well as for the general public?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's sort of core model capabilities, and then there's a bunch of features that have been built in the context of like the Gemini app that have been built on top of the model itself. So from a core model capability standpoint, which people care a lot about right now, the model race is sort of a top level narrative that everyone's talking about. The models are natively multimodal, and a couple of weeks ago we released this like native image generation, image editing, which has been going crazy and viral and the world's loving it. But basically the Gemini models from the ground up were built to be natively multimodal. So originally it was just input modality, and now it's actually output modality for both images and audio. So the model can actually output both of those things. And yeah, I think that's been one of the core differentiators. The second sort of pillar is how the models actually use tools, which if folks think about like what do models actually do on a regular basis, it's just basically like tokens in and out, or like text strings in and out. Tools is like how you actually make models useful, do stuff for you. And in the case of Gemini, the model's been trained to actually know when to use tools and when not to, specifically a bunch of our first party tools. So things like search, it can actually like natively know when a query that a user is asking might be a query that would benefit from going and actually using the Google search infrastructure to retrieve information from the internet. Same thing with code execution, which actually allows the model to be able to run code to answer, like if you ask like a really complicated math question, LLMs by default will just guess basically. And code execution is really nice because you can sort of ground the model in a source of truth. So I think that's one pillar of it. And I think the third one that continues to get people excited is long context. Like basically context is the only thing that matters in the world of AI. The more context you give the models, the better the model's able to actually answer the question that you have. So the more context you can put in, the better chances you get a good answer. And there's also just lots of data sources which require a lot of context, videos, like long documents, things like that. So folks love the 1 million and the 2 million token context window with Gemini.
Amazing. So I tell everyone that this podcast that I run is not like any other podcast in which we're just yapping all the time. So it's time to actually get in and show you a real demo of what Google AI Studio can do, all of its applications. I remember a reel I made about Stream Realtime and it went viral. It got like 8 million views on Instagram or something. But there's a lot more that you can experience, and that's what we'll just do. So let's get into Google AI Studio and tell us about all the applications.
Cool. I love it. Let's do it.
So we are on aistudio.google.com.
Yes.
What all do we have here? Logan.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, so the experience you start with when you get dropped in is this question of like, what will you build? Which I think is like a great framing of how folks should think about AI Studio. I do think if you're not a developer, there's lots of cool stuff you could do in AI Studio. You can access a bunch of our latest models for free. You can sort of see what's possible with AI. I'll add the caveat that like it is built for developers. So if you're using this and you're like, this is kind of a weird experience for me as someone who's not a developer, like that isn't partially by design. Like the Gemini app itself is built for the sort of non-developer persona, but I still think we've made it simple enough that like anyone who's interested in AI should be able to use AI Studio.
This is Google AI Studio. What do we see on the screen here?
Yeah, we're looking at a bunch of example prompts to start. We're looking at, and we can actually sort of hide away some of the complexity. It's just a chat environment to start with. The model selector on the right-hand side is sort of the magic. I think of AI Studio as sort of this interface that sits on top of the models and is really meant to not augment them in any weird way. Like everything you see in AI Studio is sort of the native capabilities of the model. We didn't like, none of the things you see in AI Studio are like quote unquote features that aren't actually available for you to go and build yourself. So we've made this intentional decision to like not do a bunch of fancy stuff that a developer wouldn't be able to replicate. So everything you see should be directly able to be replicated. So yeah, I think of the models as sort of the driver of this experience. You can look through.
What are the differences between all these models that we are looking at? So we have image gen, then we have experimental, and then plenty of others.
This is a very common question. So Gemini 2.0 Flash is our sort of generally available model if you want to build something, if you need sort of an everyday workhorse model. 2.0 Flash is a sort of cheaper, faster alternative to that. This image generation is a specific variant that lets us do really cool things like dynamically editing images. So you can see this picture of a bunch of croissants and the prompt is add some chocolate drizzle to the croissants. And you can see the image actually like it keeps the very like fine-grained details behind the scenes of the image stays the same. So there's just really good object permanence as you move from image to image. And you can keep doing weird things like make them strawberry. And we'll see. Maybe that's a bad prompt. So we'll see if the model told. Yeah, there's now strawberries in the image. I was hoping for. I don't know if strawberry croissants exist anywhere in the world, but it doesn't sound that good, but maybe you want to do it. But so you can do this really iterative prompting. And one of the coolest things about doing this with Gemini 2.0 Flash, the image generation variant, is that the model benefits from all the world knowledge of Gemini. So if you look at like how you do this type of prompting versus like if you've used Midjourney or even our image generation models, like imagine like those models, you have to prompt in a very specific way. It's like, you know, all these like words.
The words like aspect ratio,
exactly,
Pixar style, hyper realistic,
3D, HD quality, like, you know, pixely or something. All this like very like, so you actually have to learn
that art of prompting those tools,
which is really interesting. And I think the cool thing, and like not that that's a bad thing, I think it's the way you get those models to do what you want. But one of the cool things about this is you can just use the very like English level prompting of like how you actually go and do this every day in order to get the models to do what you want. Like we could say like remove some of the croissants. I can't spell croissants. Let's see if it gets it right.
And it's also pretty quick, like 4 seconds and you have an image ready.
Yeah, this is the beautiful piece of let's see, I'm sure it removed maybe 1 or 2 or something like that. It definitely moved them around. So there's definitely quality stuff that we're working on. But also, like, I think this is just one of the coolest use cases. And to me, the most exciting piece of this is, like, developers can actually take this and build it into the products that they want. So it's available and experimental today. But hopefully it'll be sort of generally available in the near future. And that's just like one of the models. There's lots of other models. We have our Pro model, which is our strongest model available today. We have our thinking model, which is like the reasoning model. So if you've really complicated questions that you need answered, you can access that here and do that type of analysis. We also have the original 1.5 series of models, and then Gemma, which is
what's Gemma?
Models. Yeah, open weight model. So if you need to actually like have the weights on your computer and you want to run it locally, or you have a server somewhere and you want to sort of control every aspect of the deployment, Gemma is really great for that. And it's actually the research from Gemini is what ends up powering the Gemma models. So it's, a lot of the same technology. The models are, natively multimodal. They have longer, not full long contacts, but they have longer contacts and a bunch of stuff like that. And they run on a single GPU, or TPU. So it's like really remarkable performance for the size of this Gemma 3 model.
Understood. And let's talk about developers. So as you showed around the 2.0 Pro models, what can people build as a developer with it and using Google AI Studio? If you could show a demo or something.
Yeah. So I think the sort of traditional workflow, and we can actually show some of these things. If you go to the left-hand side here, you can see this starter apps. And this sort of categorizes and this is a very early version of what I think we want this experience to be. But to answer exactly this question is hey, I want to build something with AI. What are the things that you could build with AI? So we have a GitHub repo, which has all these things open source, but there's a few examples of this. Let's try the spatial understanding one as an example. So this opens up this bespoke user experience. And then we can ask the model to, in this context, take this picture and add the bounding boxes around where these images are. So you could imagine there's lots of really interesting use cases of OCR, which is putting in a bunch of files and stuff and doing processing on them, which is not the most exciting use case, but extremely relevant in a world where so much of everything is still based on paper. And you can do all types of things. You could obviously crop an image to only show the specific thing that has the bounding box around it. Lots of cool things like this. There's lots of other interesting starter apps. I think native video generation is one of these things. So if we
can add a video.
Yeah.
Let's add a video. And I can maybe add this video, for example.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's a small reel about San Francisco.
Cool. I like it. Oh, and 234, the Google Wi-Fi is fast. This thing's uploading quite a... yeah, so we'll see what happens when we upload this video, but another example of the type of use case that you could have with native video understanding. So I think, again, this native multimodal piece is super interesting. If you think about all the value that AI can create, so much of it is actually locked behind these visual representations of things. In a world where text-only LLMs actually aren't going to be able to solve those problems. So I think having this video version is really cool. Let's see, explore this video, AV captions, tables, haiku, charts, key moments. Generate. See if we...
So because it has the multimodal capabilities, it can analyze what's actually happening in the video and give you insights from that.
100%. And it doesn't there's a lot of, obviously there's ways that you could sort of hack your way around this. You could, use a audio model, or you could use individual frames of an image and then use an image understanding model. But actually the thing that's magical is you sort of bring it all together and you don't lose the very specific nuance of the flow of a story. Whereas if you were looking at just frames of an image or something like that, or just an audio transcript, or all the things how is someone actually saying something? Can you sort of pick up on the nuance of are they animated? Are they talking in a weird, what's actually happening there? So there's lots of cool ways in which video understanding is this really quintessential use case that, again, isn't possible with other models, which is super cool.
And have you seen what is the most crazy application you've seen of people using Google AI Studio or Gemini in general to build some crazy app using its multimodal capabilities?
That's a good question. I think the most magical one right now that I'm seeing is, and I don't know how long it's going to take because this is a long video, but if you just take a YouTube link and you drop it into the AI Studio chat, it'll automatically populate. And I think that's a good example of there's so much information that's locked away on YouTube. And I think giving developers a path to be able to tie into that directly for people's own content or studying and all that, it's just going to be such a cool world.
Let's actually do that. So you said that you can paste a YouTube video link. So if I open another Google AI Studio, we go to YouTube, and let's say we take any video. Let's just take this video about Next.js.
Last right.
My Fireship.
Lots of Next.js stuff happening in the use right now.
Okay, so I have that video with me. Now what can it do?
And I'll switch to, this is using Stream Realtime. I'll switch to 2.0. And then automatically the video is just loaded into the context window of the.
So you can basically paste any YouTube video on Google AI Studio and you can ask anything about it.
Exactly. So what is the controversy with Next.js? And yeah, shout out to the folks at Vercel. They're fighting the guy. I don't have all the context, but I've been watching all the threads on Twitter of Lee and Guillermo talking about all the Next.js stuff. So we'll see what it says. Yeah, I feel like that's at least the first sentence, captures my understanding of some of the stuff that's happening. So yeah, really cool feature. And I think like, again, it's, if you're not a developer, like this is cool because you can put YouTube videos in and sort of get context. But as a developer, like we're making this accessible, and right now it's in preview. So there's limits on like how many hours of video you can pass through the API, but we're working on a path forward to actually make this like at scale available for developers, and really opening YouTube up as sort of a place where developers can build on top of it and get access to some of this content, which is
so it not only uses the captions, this is separated, it has the video understanding of it.
Exactly.
So I can ask it that if you see a Tesla, tell me all the timestamps in this video where you see a Tesla, and it will give me those timestamps for it.
Exactly. And that's actually one of the at least temporary deltas between how the Gemini app sees these videos and how AI Studio does. So from a developer perspective, we're using like the full tokens, like 66,000 tokens for this video.
And what's a token for people who don't know?
Yeah, tokens are sort of a chunk of text. I think it's, for what it's worth, I think it's kind of this made up complexity.
Like the atom of for AI, sort of, to explain.
Yeah. And for every language model, there's sort of a tokenization process where you sort of try to take all of the corpus of information that the model was trained on and break it up into the most like optimal set of chunks. And those chunks represent tokens. And it's usually like one token is like 3 or 4 characters. But it's this abstraction to try to make the model training process and the inference process more algorithmically efficient. And again, for what it's worth, I think it's this added complexity that doesn't really need to exist as far as the narrative for AI goes, but it's obviously helpful computationally.
I see it's saying Gemini makes mistakes, so double check it. What does that really mean, and how can people be aware of this? Because I see this happen all the time.
Yeah, this is one of the most difficult problems. And I think model hallucination stuff is like still this really unsolved problem. I think in the context of like video, of this exact use case, like you could watch the video and you can sort of know, like, does this actually work? Like where and my general guidance is like, it doesn't tend to be that like the models are like making, there's like certain classes of problems that the models make mistakes on. So I think if you do like a bunch of testing to know like, hey, the model's actually really good at like science videos, like it understands the concepts, but like maybe it's not good at like, the nuance of politics or like some other. So I think that's the level of like testing to make sure that the model doesn't make mistakes, is there's like certain areas where the model's stronger or certain areas where the model's weaker, and sort of doing that experimentation can be really helpful.
Amazing. So we had a look at the YouTube feature. There is something over here as well.
Nice. This pulled up the timestamps of all of the different things that are happening.
And it's describing every single frame. So this is an aerial view of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Person looking up at the skyscraper. Can you play this video? That's actually, okay, it's okay. So that's me, and then Salesforce Park. That's a Waymo. That's some robots. So it's basically able to identify and label every single frame. And what could be like applications of something like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of, one of the ones that jumps to my mind, which again is not the most exciting use case, but there's just a lot of like, there's a lot of context that humans usually, like right now, the only way to get context out of a video is to watch the video.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of like really useful information that's sort of locked behind like 1-to-1. If there's an hour video, a human has to spend an hour watching this. And if you think about the world, there's like obviously YouTube, there's billions of hours of video every day that are being uploaded to YouTube. So like I think and there's a lot of use cases that developers have in which, they maybe have hundreds or thousands of hours of video from whatever their use case is that aren't being, like, it's just not possible to understand. One of my friends is building a company using Gemini, using this capability to do like product analytics. So like understanding how users are interacting with products, and having the sort of video understanding like sort of do the analysis of how those people are using products so that he doesn't have to sit there.
Yeah.
So that teams who build products don't have to sit there and watch hundreds of hours of videos of their customers using their product. They can sort of just have AI analyze it and pull out all the insights.
That's exactly what I used to do when I was working at a startup. So there's a company called Jar, which allows you to record customers' sessions.
Yeah.
So I would literally sit and see them move their cursor and open different web pages in the website and figure out what are they really using.
Yeah.
And now, for example, an app could be something which you can just feed in all of those videos. It analyzes what people are using and give you insights on what can you build and what to focus on. That's one example of what you can build. But this is starter apps. We talked about the create prompt and the image feature and the YouTube feature. What else? I think there was a new Canvas feature that came up. What is that and how can people use that?
Yeah, so Canvas is in the Gemini app. So we can jump over to the Gemini app. Let me show one more thing before we do that, which is stream real time. Real-time streaming, I think, is one of the things that has really sort of captured people's imaginations. And I think it's this, my sort of general umbrella is this idea of AI co-presence, which is like usually when you engage with a model, all of the onus and the work is on you as the user to like get the right context of the model so that it can actually help you. And the cool thing, and like one of the, or maybe not the cool thing, one of the interesting things is like most of the context is actually usually already on your screen somewhere. It's like, hey, I have this other thing somewhere else and I want to make that accessible to the model. It's an email, it's a video, it's a DM, it's a Slack message, whatever it is, it's on my screen somewhere. How come the model can't just look at my screen to help me? And I think that's the magic of this real-time mode. And again, this is something that what you're looking at AI Studio is like a demo, but you could also build this for developers and we can actually share our screen. And we could share, a Chrome tab, for example, and I'll share this, or maybe I'll share this other video and I'll ask the model to tell us what's happening. Hey, Gemini, what's happening on this screen right now?
The screen shows a Google AI Studio interface displaying a video titled Next, JS Security Advisory Controversy, along with the transcript of the video.
Nice, transcript. That's
Tells
super
a critical
cool.
security advisory related to Next.js, explaining how an attack.
Nice, thank you.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
Yeah, there's a couple things you can help me with. What is the sort of simplified in one sentence description of what's happening in this video?
The video discusses a critical security flaw in Next.js that allows attackers to bypass authentication and authorization.
Beautiful. And lots of like, I think this is like the most rough version of this experience. We actually have a bunch of stuff that we're shipping in the next couple of weeks, specifically like how voice activation detection, VAD, I think is the acronym for it, of like how do you interject into a conversation with AI in like a fluid way where I think like humans have the ability to understand the social cues in a conversation. AI doesn't have that. So you need to like algorithmically approximate how you sort of do that engagement with humans. I think the thing with this that I'm most excited about is there's so many interfaces in which people have problems navigating websites and like understanding the content. I think about like, if my grandma wants to go in or like my mom wants to go and like use some new tool, it's like actually not easy to like understand. And we've seen a bunch of cool use cases where people who make applications are actually like building this in as a feature, as like a sort of visual co-pilot feature to help their customers like, hey, how do I actually use this product? Like, now, I'm stuck here. Like I'm on this page in AI Studio. I want to do this thing. Like, where do I go? And I think that's one of the coolest use cases. You could also imagine like, this getting built into the OS level, which would be really cool. You can imagine this in an IDE for a developer. Like you have a pair programmer who's just there with you, who can like see your screen. You can just one click be like, hey, I'm stuck here. Like, and they can be like, okay, navigate to this file and like check out all that. There's like so many cool applications of this. And it's available for developers right now to start experimenting with. And we'll have a sort of fully production ready version in the next few weeks, which I'm super excited about.
Amazing. So that's stream real time. I also see Tuna model and library and prompt gallery. What are those features about?
Yeah, Tuna Library is one of the original features we shipped, which is just fine tuning. If folks have data they want to make the model better at, you can actually come in and fine tune. It's only available for the previous generation of Gemini, and we're working to make it available for the next generation. So there's not a ton of value here, to be honest, at the present moment, because it's still the older model. But Prompt Gallery is sort of just a very basic sort of set of different prompts that, all the very, very varied level of use cases, from everything like writing a letter to Santa, using the models to like analyzing hurricane patterns and all this other stuff. So there's a ton of different stuff you could do with the models. And this is sort of meant to showcase like just a
The
sliver.
breadth of things that you can do with it.
Yeah, 100%. And with different tools and models enabled. So you'll see like different models, specifically different tools enabled for all these different ones, as folks sort of try to get inspiration for what's possible.
Yep, I see stuff for worksheets. I see unit testing. I see marketing and so much more.
I think
Really cool.
the funny thing about this is like it's now becoming very clear that like you can do everything with AI. So it's like the prompt gallery is like trying to approximate all of human experience, captured down into one single page in a UI, which is not easy to use. There's a whole lot of stuff that's not possible here, but these are at least like some of those use cases you could explore.
And then what is the Canvas feature about in Gemini app?
Yeah. So do you want to? We'll switch over to the Gemini
We'll go
app.
to Gemini app.
Yeah, so there's actually two big features available inside of the Gemini app, and the two that I'm most excited about is deep research and Canvas. So Canvas is a way that you can actually go in, and it's actually showcasing a bunch of these examples here, being able to make a study plan for Chemistry 101, write an essay, make a quiz app, create a landing page for my robotics project. So you can basically two core new artifacts. You can both create documents and edit them inside of the Gemini app. And you can actually create and edit like simple web apps directly inside of the Gemini app. So let's try this landing page one, just because robotics is cool. And you can see on the right-hand side, all of this content is being dynamically generated, and it's writing code for you. And after the code is done being written, it'll actually
Preview.
Yeah, you'll be able to show a preview and interact with the code. This is actually,
Oh wow,
this is pretty decent.
yeah.
It's not perfect, but it definitely is faster. Like it gives you a faster starting place than you would be able to do yourself.
And for a prompt like this, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and the nice thing is you can actually like directly iterate. So we could say
just like the image capabilities.
Exactly. So this is cool, but I need it to be a little more retro. Just around, it was like robots, retro stuff. I don't know. So we'll see. And the model can actually go in and sort of dynamically edit based on this context they have given it. And you can, again, continue to see these things show up in real time. You can download the code. You can go and like build this into a real app if you wanted to.
I think the good part is that it's not only creating the functionality, but it's also helping you write the CSS and the style of it.
100%.
It's really good.
I actually like this. I mean, the colors need to be slightly fixed, but I like this sort of retro vibe a little bit more. This is like the text of like old Mario
games,
stuff like that. Yeah. So this is cool. So this is really nice. And then you can actually say something like, okay, nice. Now make me a deep report on how to create my first robotics project. And again, I can't spell, which is a feature of AI that it does all the dirty work for me. So we'll be able to, and so we can see automatically, dynamically, Canvas mode switches over from, hey, before we were doing code and seeing a code preview, now we're actually in sort of a documentation editing experience, which is like a loose approximation of Google Docs. So if you're a developer or you're, a daily active Google Docs user like me, you can sort of experience this, and it has a bunch of like cool, like small AI, features built in. So we could do something called suggest edits, and the model will sort of dynamically critique itself from the generation. You can change the lengths of the models, and then actually at the lengths of the output from the model. And then at the end, you can just export it to a Google Doc, which is really cool. And we'll see some of the suggestions from the model. Nice. And it's like actually kind of, again, it's an approximation of the Google Docs experience. And you can imagine like an AI sort of critiquing your work and your writing directly inside this. So very cool. I think Canvas mode is awesome. And a nice way to sort of start a project or something like that. I think the other one is deep research, and deep research will take a little bit of time to actually do. But if you have some topic you want to explore, like what are the best, I'm just going to continue with this robotics thread. What are the best home robots for people who want to be on the cutting edge of what is available in robotics today? Give me only the best.
Okay. How is this different than using like the normal chat, working with any chatbot like ChatGPT or just any other app?
That's a great question. So the normal sort of chatbot experience, and we'll sort of assume that search is not enabled in those experiences, is basically the model is taking all the context that it was trained on and returning that to you in some reasonable way. So like basically if, if really the best home robotics thing, like isn't well represented in the training data, and it's some new company or it's some like, dynamic new thing, it's not going to come out of like the base model itself. You can sort of augment some of that with search. I think the challenge with that is it usually is, again, it's like a rough approximation. Maybe you get like 3 or 4 items, it hasn't actually like gone and read all the reviews and done some really deep thinking. This is the cool thing about deep research is that it actually is going and like visiting like potentially hundreds of pages in order to get you the answer.
In real time.
In real
presents
time.
you all the results.
Yeah. So here the model actually wrote out like a little plan of how it's going to do the different research.
And we can also change the plan. That's the good part about it. If you want it to be specifically focused on particular things.
Exactly. And so this is not intended. It is sort of doing the searching in real time, but it does a lot of, like I've seen cases where it visits like 1,000 websites and comes back. So it takes a little bit of time. We might have to come back to this. And once the research is done, we'll be able to see the full report.
We can look at the other ones that I've done.
I think the
Do I need to change it?
No, it had given some error message that something didn't work. So refreshing.
Oops.
We are not robots, unfortunately. Oh, cool. And it actually made good progress. So far it's researched 36 websites and you can sort of see all the different
things. On every place like Amazon and YouTube and whatnot.
Tom's Guide, Sunet, etc. So it's doing all this very interesting work. And I actually just bought a new home cleaning robot. So I'm trying to see if it's going to make the cut or not. If it's on, and it's going to the DeepMind website, which is really awesome. So super, super cool stuff. And in this time we've been talking, has already visited 56 websites. And if I think about how I do my sort of research and shopping and planning and all this stuff, like way, way more thorough than I would ever do. Like I can't say that I visited 56 websites for anything ever to try to make a decision. So super cool to see this.
So the craziest thing that I did with it is to find the cheapest business class tickets. So when I was coming here, I was like, it's a long haul flight. I need to get a better seat. So I just asked it, find me the best business class seats. I need to be here from this date to this date. I can have plus minus 2 days here and there, but find me the best dates. And then it researches and finds every airline, every possible combination and every possible date. And it got me the best offer.
Wow.
So that's just another quirky version that I found out.
I love that. And so deep research is actually available for everyone for free. So if you want to sort of try this experience and see like, hey, I have some, travel or shopping, whatever it is, like you can try and see how good the response is and sort of validate this for yourself. But I think it's the breadth of the research that it's doing that gets me excited. Like again, it's up to 134 different websites that has visited for you. And it's crazy. Yeah. It's just so it's another really quick anecdotal example is I think one of the biggest challenges of AI products today is oftentimes you're as a user, you're being asked to sort of extend belief that this thing's going to be useful. And I think like email is the best example of this. Like when I see some new email product, I'm like, cool, it might do the thing that it's saying it's going to do, but I need to like give them access to all my emails and like do all this stuff. And I think deep research is one of these things where it's like such a minimal investment from a user to then see like, oh my gosh, it's visited 134 different websites. Like to me, that like as a user of the product, I feel like attached somewhat more to this thing now because I've seen this like work that it's been doing. So I think there's a lot of like for folks who are building products, I think there's a lot of interesting threads around this of like, how do you show users, how do you sort of meet them halfway and show them this?
And this feature people can access as a developer as well to build stuff like deep research?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we haven't made the full deep research experience. So this is a good example of like, what's the difference between a sort of, product level feature and a model level feature. So the model knows, hey, if the user is asking for this type of query, we should go and use search, or we should go and do function calling. So, and you could sort of roughly approximate part of this experience, but you definitely won't get the depth of this experience in the API today for developers. So it's definitely something that we're looking at as far as how we can make this available for more developers.
So this is going to take some time. We'll come back to it. But basically, this is like a general purpose use case for anyone who's watching this video. But let's go deeper for the developers. Let's say I want to build an app. Let's say I want to build an AI agent and I want to use Gemini for that. How can that be done? Like if you can show a simple demo of building a simple AI agent which could do a particular task using Gemini.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think my suggestion is, I don't know, do you have like a favorite agentic framework or something like that you use for these types of use cases?
Could be make.com or NA10 or anything like that.
Yeah. I've never used make.com, but we can look at this. So I think the way a developer would actually do this is we as sort of the Gemini API team don't have a sort of agentic framework. So like we're sort of framework agnostic, whatever you want to build with. It could be LangChain, it could be make.com, it could be Zapier, it could be anything.
Yeah.
All you need to do is go into AI Studio, click get API key, and then you're able to like directly copy for free, take that API key and go into whatever framework you want and build something. So we can do make.com. I've never used it, but I'm happy we can try building something.
So that this is one thing. What I think developers would want to use is like Visual Studio Code.
Yeah.
So if you go over here, we have something called as Client. And so the good thing that Client does is I could go here and I can change it to Google Gemini and I can enter my Gemini key. So I'll just mute the screen recording for a minute and grab my API key if I can find it. Let me see if this works here.
You can also make a key and then just delete it if you want.
The problem with that is I've exhausted my credits. So I do here and I generate a key. Does it work? Fail to generate a key. Access denied.
It's probably based on what account you're in. I don't know.
Yeah. But let's see if we can go to a different account. Okay. Let's see. This should work.
I'll get you some more credits. That seems easy. You should.
Okay. So we have created an API key. I'll just take this, create API key. So now I have an API key. I can go in here and I can replace it with this. And so now I can choose all the models that I have available. Over here, what model would you recommend?
Yeah, what do you want to build? I think that's my...
Let's say we build something which recommends me some, something to buy from Amazon or does web scraping for me to find some contacts.
Cool. Let's use the thinking model. I think it's usually if you're looking for like the best performance on coding, it's usually split between pro and thinking. So let's try the thinking model and see what it does. And what did you want to build again?
Let's say we're trying to build a web scraper. I can tell it to like get me contacts like lead generation of a particular company. Web scraper, lead generation. Company and role. So this would actually like go on a browser and search for it. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So my understanding, and I haven't used Klein before, but like this will give us sort of a code experience. It'll like generate the code for exactly this use case. If we wanted to specifically enable like Gemini's search functionality, we can do so using like we can tell the model to do that. I think my guess is it's not going to do that by default, but if we switch over to the developer documentation, we can copy a bunch of stuff in and then actually have it do that.
So that's basically like in the AI Studio API documentation?
Exactly. So if we go, it'll be like search grounding as one of the options, grounding with Google search, and then we can go to this. So we can copy this code sample. We'll actually, and the example is one of the next solar eclipse going to happen in the United States. So we can actually just really quickly switch over to a new file. If we were to...
Is that Python?
Yeah, this is Python. Call it search.py. And then we actually use this. Can we save this folder?
Yeah, sure.
We'll use this as the starter for having Klein. I think Klein can actually like build around this file perhaps if we want to do it that way. And then can we go back to, I forgot how you got to the API key, but we'll hard code the API key here too.
Yep.
Cool.
It's right here.
See if that will actually API key.
It's really cool.
Nope, that's not what we wanted. Let's go back to AI Studio and get that key again.
Yep.
Cool.
So this is like a model.
This is telling us we need to just install the right packages. So I did not install all the right packages. So we'll see if it has the Google Gen AI package installed. And then awesome. Echo, cool. Awesome. So we installed the Google Gen AI package, which is how we get access to the models. And then we're seeing sort of the raw response object, which the query was, when is the next solar eclipse in the United States? And then the model response is, the next total solar eclipse that will be seen from the contiguous United States will be August 23rd, 2044. Wow. The path of totality for this eclipse will only be touching the states Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota. And let's actually just, just to make sure that we're not getting duped by the model, let's switch over to regular Google search, and we'll just validate that this is true. Okay, cool. Awesome. August 22nd, 2044. So this becomes really, really powerful. Going back to this use case that you were describing of like, can we actually go and scrape the internet for certain things? It is definitely possible. I think the one of the features that we're working on that folks have asked for is like, can I constrain it to like a certain website or like a specific criteria?
Yeah.
This is doing like very broad search. So like it is possible that I could get the answers. Like we could say something like, I forgot what was the script. Like, is there a specific company that you're interested in trying to get?
Let's get in touch with DeepMind.
Yeah, let's do it. And I'm trying to think of like, there is a little bit of a mental model of like, this is doing, like it really is using search behind the scenes. So it's not like a traditional, like prompt the model in like a normal, it's like, think about it how you would think about doing search. So I'm wondering like Google DeepMind, Google DeepMind contact info people to get in touch with at Google DeepMind. I don't know. We'll see if this like, please only return email addresses. We'll see if that works.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I'm not sure that will actually work well, but we'll find out. This is the beauty and fun of AI stuff. And it was very, very fast. Goodness. That was almost literally instantaneous. And so it's returning, just for context of why we're scrolling through all this stuff, it actually returns like a Google search results for so that you can like render. And if we go back to the developer documentation, it'll return some like HTML and CSS so that you can render this like Google search box underneath your results. So that if you wanted to like go, just like the example we did of like validating that this thing was a real result, you could just like one click go over to Google search and validate that it's a real result. But let's see what it comes with. Well, I can't provide a directory of personal information for Google DeepMind employees. Good. That seems pretty reasonable.
What is the format basically?
Yeah, the most common is the format. Yeah, so there's probably, and it has like press, contact, AlphaFold, and it's probably pulling these Google DeepMind scholarship, their careers website. So you could probably do some more prompt tuning to get the model to try to be more specific about it. Yeah, so all of this is possible.
Yeah, and basically Klein helps you build like a complete infrastructure around. This is just the output, but you can like build an app with it.
Yeah, which was
so this is Klein. Like people can also be using something like a Cursor.
Yeah, I like Klein. I actually think Klein powers a bunch of their stuff with Gemini, which is awesome. So I'm a Klein supporter.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I like Cursor too, and I love the Cursor team, and they obviously are also using Gemini in certain contexts. But yeah, lots of cool stuff.
Amazing. So this is basically Cursor, and it's very similar to VS Code, and like it works very similarly. So this is an overview of how you can start building with the Gemini API. What else? Is there anything else that is in the store for people to use for Google AI Studio or Gemini or any other tool?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the thing that's in store at the time of this recording, we haven't actually launched it yet, but hopefully by the time the recording goes out, we will have come out with Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is our sort of most advanced, state-of-the-art. It's actually the world's most powerful AI model, which is crazy. It's crazy to sort of say that in a sentence, but we've made a ton of progress on the sort of latest model, and it's specifically coding performance has been something that we've leaned into a lot. So this whole vibe coding, sort of build anything with Cursor and Klein and all these other products, it matters a lot to us, and we've sort of put a bunch of effort into making sure that that's possible.
Amazing. So that's to 2.5.
2.5.
And how is it better? Like what exactly is better in the new model?
Yeah. So it's like literally across the board, almost state-of-the-art performance on like almost every benchmark. So it's everything from, coding performance to MMLU to humanities last exam. And how that materializes in like real use cases is, because it's a larger model, it's just able to solve problems that other models aren't able to. And it has reasoning enabled by default. So the model is like reasoning for every query that you send it. So it takes a little bit longer to get an answer, but it is like directly comparable with O1 and sort of and Claude 3.7 Sonnet and the drop models and DeepSeek. Yeah, I think it's much stronger than a lot of those models actually. So it's super cool to see. I'm really excited to see what people build, and I actually think that like Klein use case and the Cursor use case become really, really powerful with this example.
And the best part is that you can get all of that power from Google AI Studio available for everyone.
Available for everyone for free, yeah. And with this model, we're trying to make, I think one of the pieces of feedback has been like, free models are great, but like we obviously, again, because it's free, we have to limit it. People don't want those limits. They want to use the model as much as possible. So I think the model is going to be available in both the Gemini app for people to use. We're also trying to figure out like a way for developers to be able to actually pay for the model so that they can go and like use it as much as you want. I think it's back to this thread of like how Google thinks about the world and what we're doing with models. I think it's really important that the models are available to everyone to actually go and build with. Like having a state-of-the-art model and this is my, my impassioned pitch to the team is like having a state-of-the-art model that people can't actually build with doesn't create value for the world. Like it's a great like, PR headline for Google, which is awesome. And we should take PR headline wins when we can get them. But we need people to build this stuff. And the only way to build it is like put it in the hands of developers and sort of now the sort of AI builders that are using all these new tools. So I'm super excited.
Yep, amazing. And just as you were speaking, we have the deep research ready for us to find the home robot that you want.
Yeah, I love this.
This is like what, 16 pages?
16 pages. I'm like, here's what I need. I need AI to then, and you actually can. So you can
just ask Gemini right there
and be like, okay, this is a little too long. What is the main point?
People say that this is going to take the consulting market away.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
That's a good question. I think I do think you need a human to really drive a lot of this stuff. So I am like very staunchly a AI augmented humans will like create a ton of value in the world.
So human in the loop, fine.
Human in the loop, 100%. I really do fundamentally believe that. And this is telling me what the main point is. So like this is really helpful as you sort of go back and forth between these different abstraction layers. You now have Gemini and sort of the
whole suite of tools available
in Docs. And actually, if we go back, we could say if we were to and the other thing is audio overviews.
Oh, wow.
So audio overviews are built directly into this Canvas mode, and you can take the deep research report, you can turn it, and if folks haven't tried audio overviews in Notebook LM, it's been like one of the most popular features where you can basically two podcast hosts replace us yapping all day and make the experience come to life inside of Notebook LM or inside of the Gemini app now, which is just super cool. So deep research to audio overviews. I was talking to Dave Citron, who's one of the leads for the Gemini product team, and he's saying that like that's now his like de facto work stream when he drives into the office is he does like a deep research before he leaves, and then he listens to the audio overview in the office about all these different, and it's just like personalized podcasts on demand. Which
this is really cool. So basically a workflow for all of you who are watching, you could literally just wake up, whatever field you are in. Maybe you could be in robotics, you could be in bioengineering. You could literally just ask it, give me the latest news on this, and it'll create a complete research report, like 16-page long report. You can turn it into a podcast, hear it while you're going to the office, and you can be that smart person who knows what's happening in the field.
Yeah, I think this literally like changes how people think about the relationship with learning, honestly, in many ways. Like, I think there's just so many people, and like I find myself in this camp all the time, which is like, you're being forced to learn something. It's a lot less fun in a lot of ways. And I think this is like the type of interface which like this infinite content repurposing platform really makes content fun. And if you're sort of a student or you're just like learning something right now, Notebook LM has all these, and you mentioned mind maps, has all these great features where you can just like dump in all the documents and be like, teach this to me in a way that's actually interesting and exciting. And I think that's one of the like most positive impacts of AI is that exactly that workflow. So hopefully
There's one more thing called Vertex AI. What is exactly is it, and how can developers use that?
Yeah.
Google.
So Vertex, if you think about like what AI Studio does, we're really focused on providing Google's first-party models to developers. If you're like, if you're Walmart or you're like a very large company that like needs a lot of stuff that's not just like a basic set of tools for developers, that's really where Vertex comes in. Vertex is able to provide this like really verbose, like full end-to-end experience for enterprises. And it's everything from like you want to train your own foundation model, and there's like some of the world's best foundation models are trained on through Vertex on Google Cloud, to you need Gemini and you need like billions of tokens a minute and like huge production enterprise grade scale, to you actually want to access third-party models. Like Anthropic's models, for example, are available on Google Cloud, and a lot of the open source models are available there, and others. So there's a whole like model garden of like hundreds of third-party, not Google models available there, versus AI Studios, like we're there to provide specifically Google's first-party models for the developer startup user persona.
Wow. And we have a 10-minute podcast ready for you to watch.
We'll
listen, learn from.
10 seconds and we'll see if it's any good.
If you're listening to this, you're probably as fascinated as we are by what's happening with home robots.
Yeah, I mean, we're moving way beyond just robot vacuums now, right?
Oh, absolutely. Things are getting really interesting.
Mm.
And we're lucky enough to have this report on the latest advancements.
Humans.
Yeah, it goes really deep, and we're going to try and unpack it all for you today. So what are we looking at?
Well, I think the biggest...
I love that.
So,
I'm trying to convince the deep research team that they need to have their own podcast, because I feel like that would actually like using deep research to power the podcast experience to like do like really like I
you'll
should
come full circle.
Yeah, it'd be some like really, really interesting use cases and takeaways.
And you can download this and hear whenever you want to.
Yeah, and then you can take the model and go back to AI Studio and get all the timestamps and like, do all this. So I think we're like very, the Gemini app is sort of taking full form with like bringing together all of these parts of the Google ecosystem into a single interface. And there's actually this personalization now where you can go in and ask questions, and it's basically pulls in a bunch of your search history and like really personalizes the experience to you. So like lots of cool.
It has those nuances about me and what I've like talked about in the past.
It's super cool. So I think all of those experiences are coming together in the Gemini app, and it's been super fun to watch this team build all this and bring it together.
Amazing. This was really insightful. Thank you so much, Logan. Last question that I have is for people who are still watching this video till the very end and they want to build a AI startup in 2025, what has your experience told you, the advice that you want to give to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the 2 points. One is, I think everyone's looking for like, what is their advantage? What is their differentiator? I think there's a lot of these things actually baked into the models today. And like, obviously, somewhat, selfishly, I like talking about Gemini stuff. I think Gemini is a great example of this, where like we talked about all these multimodal use cases. We talked about all these video use cases. Like, most people are not building in that space. So I think there's like real competitive edges from the models themselves that you can get like just out of the box because other people aren't using whatever that model is. So I think I would explore that. I would try to find like a model edge if you can. And then I think there's like this emergent UX paradigm of like, how do you interact with models? Like, it's not a chatbot. So I think if your startup is like, we're building an AI chatbot, pivot and try to do something else as soon as possible, because there's too many AI chatbots. It's not differentiated. And actually for, most use cases, you don't need a chatbot. Like there's a lot better experiences that you could build to like actually solve your customer's need. So I would try to innovate on that like user experience layer of like what is the right way to solve this problem? What is the ideal customer experience? And actually, in a lot of ways, how do you abstract away the AI stuff? Like users, the average person doesn't care about AI. They're like, I have this problem. I have a video problem. I have a cooking problem. I have a whatever, cleaning problem, and whatever your example is, like they don't have an AI problem. The AI is the solution. If it's possible, abstract it away from your user. And I think because of the moment that we're in with AI, there's such a desire to like put that in front of users because in some cases they are looking for it. But I think as much as possible, fight against that, abstract away the AI, find your model edge, find your UX edge. There's never been a better time to build.
This has been an amazing time talking to you. Thanks a lot, Logan. This was a complete walkthrough of Gemini, Google AI Studio, and all that can you do with it as a developer or as a general person. Watch this video till the very end, rewatch it, take notes, and start executing. Thanks a lot for watching. Share this video with a friend, and we'll see you in the next one.